Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about high pressure situations. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, as a software engineer and tech lead, how would you approach a high pressure situation at work where everything seems to be going wrong? So it's usually the case that if you're in a high pressure situation and things keep on going wrong, well, it's hard to say, but one part is that you need to make sure that your mind is where it should be. One thing that a lot of people do when they get into a high pressure situation is that they get very stressed out and like more things keep on going wrong, which is very difficult. It's sort of like if you get stressed, your body is going to make it more difficult for you to think clearly. And as you can imagine, people like, the bomb squad or like the people who work with like really severe, like landmines and stuff like that, where like, it's a life and death situation. Even they, okay, I'm assuming now, they also have to practice. They have to practice that skill to be able to go into a potentially lethal situation and decouple themselves from what they're doing so that they can keep control over their thought process. Because if they get stressed, they die. If you get stressed, you have a production bugs. I mean, that's a fraction of that stress that they are feeling. But imagine if you get stressed and then you start fixing things and you don't really know what you're doing, and then you ship another bug and then another bug. You can actually create cascading problems if you can't get yourself to a state where you can focus on the problem. And I've made a few videos on how, like, my mental techniques for that, which is sort of like I always go into damage control mode. It's like the way I describe it is, if your house is on fire, the first thing that you should identify is the exit. The second thing is identify how do you get to that exit. Everything else is secondary. And when you are in a safe state or safe enough state where you have addressed the most immediate issue, you can start looking on perspective things and like bigger picture sort of stuff and like damage control of like stuff and so forth. But that's the basis of compartmentalization and like crisis control and crisis management and so forth. But when it comes to that things consistently goes wrong in software teams, the only thing that I've ever seen that causes this issue is, unfortunately, on PC, like a lack of talent. Because the high pressure situations, if they keep on happening, if you continuously have production issues and you continuously have these sorts of issues within a team, it has very little to do with anything besides the talent of the team. And this is very difficult for it's a difficult problem to solve. It's a very it is actually simple in its essence, because the reality is that you need someone who is truly talented to take the helm of the situation. The problem is that most companies lack a lot of stuff in order to make that happen. It's usually, most companies don't know how to hire a decent software developer, so hiring someone who can truly address the sort of systematic problems that team might have is borderline impossible, because most people think of software developers as, a unit of a person. I mean, if you take 10 software developers and you put them on a problem, you sort of think of them as smart or like equal in a measure because they can produce the code. It's just that that is sort of like saying that all builders are alike or all athletes are alike, etc., etc. When you really know your stuff, you will notice that some people are truly gifted in what they are doing and some people just know the basics. That is enough for most situations, which is the reason why we can scale it, right? Because if you can't scale an artist per se, like an artist who makes paintings or something like that. That's like an individual who is individually talented, so you can't really replicate that sort of a talent, right? But any craft can be replicated to a certain degree, and as long as they can meet the base needs of whoever's buying the product or service, then most people are happy with that. But this problem, when you have a systematic issue within the organization or in the team that you're dealing with, that's a non-standard problem. It is a problem that I've only seen truly talented people be able to solve that problem. There is no blueprint for it. There is no guru or anything. Like, everybody's claiming that, saying like, yeah, this is what Waterfall is about, Agile, Scrum, like reliability engineers. Like, there is an ocean of people who is going to give you solutions to this problem. Where the reality is that most of these sorts of solutions, they have a degree of accuracy, but it's really down to you, to the people working within the team or within the group, to truly understand their business and understand their needs and understand the actual problem. It's sort of like it's almost like diagnosing yourself and your own issues. And as I like to say, you're only able to see as much as the wisdom that you possess. Because someone who is, well, if we're going to go with that way, a dumb person will look at the same person as an intelligent person and see nothing. But the intelligent person will see a way, or find like something that the dumb like the uninformed, or whatever we want to call it. And that's really what it comes down to. So if you are consistently seeing that you have issues with where you have a lot of production bugs, or you have a lot of issues, or things aren't really working, there's a lot of friction within your team and so forth, it really comes down to that. You have a lack of talent within your organization. And unfortunately for you, that is not a problem that I'm going to be able to I can't explain it to you how to fix that problem, because you're literally looking at a situation where the only way you could solve it is to be in a state where you have talented people who can come in and apply their knowledge and their talent to solving these sorts of issues. And here's the kicker. If you can't figure out who these people are, you're most likely going to hire someone who's not going to be able to fix the problem. And so the best tip I can give anybody who's trying to fix this problem, if I'm an engineering lead, this is where it gets difficult for me, because I've never had this problem. In most of the years that I've worked as a tech lead and as a more involved, let's call it, when I have led the teams, we never have these issues. I really do mean it. It sounds pompous and it sounds like I'm bragging, but I really try to make this just accurate. We don't have these issues that a lot of teams experience. And that is because one part, we have good people. And the other part is that we don't just have people who know how to code. We have people who understand how to deliver value. We understand what is necessary. It's sort of like the difference between having someone who's really good at algorithms and someone who can actually build a system that fulfills the requirements of what the company wants, right? That's a very big part of it. And I've only ever worked with people like that, usually. And some cases I've worked with systems, and it's not like I haven't had my share of failures and worked with a lot of shitty systems and so forth. But as I said, the times when that has happened, the times when I'm dealing with really, really shitty systems and all these sorts of issues, it is directly correlated to the incompetence of the people doing the work. It is really that simple. It always comes down to the same thing. And I've been very lucky, because when I deal with software teams, and usually they tell me this are the goals, etc., we can set up roadmaps, we can set up structures and all the things, because we have people who really know what to do in order to make sure that things don't keep on failing, or that we don't so that we can meet our deadlines and so forth and so forth. And it's actually rare that anyone that I work with has a sensation of a high pressure work environment. Because we never get to that point, because we're actually able to meet all of our goals. So what I want you to take away from this is that the reality is that dealing with a high pressure situation, if you're solving a production issue or something like that, it's a priority type of deal. I have videos for that if you want to check that out. But it comes down to actually being able to calm yourself down to a point where you can effectively work on the problem and focus on damage control. Focus on the most critical thing first and then move on as you go. And that's a mental technique that you can practice if you want. It's something that crisis, like first responders and so forth, they're very good at this stuff. And then if it's something that where we're dealing with a team situation where things are continuously going wrong, the likelihood is that you have incompetent people that you're working with, that you don't actually know how to set up a solution that is going to work. And I don't have a recipe for you, which is like that's going to solve the talent problem. But usually what I tell companies is that if you want to overhaul your organization, you will not do so with mass hires. You will have to understand that you're going to have to get some star players for your team. And those star players, you need to recruit them and put them in a position of power. And then the last thing, which is the thing that you can actually do, is to set very specific requirements on what needs to happen within the organization. Set very concrete goals. And I'm talking very concrete. I'm talking like, we have an average of this amount of issues, etc., etc. We need you to fix this for us, and communicate to the people that you've hired that are really talented at this sort of stuff, that this is this trend, like the overhaul we want to see from you. Like these are the milestones, if so, and so forth and so forth, and because we need the system to go to a certain state. And now that puts a little bit of pressure on you as well, because now you actually have to know your business, and that is in of itself, and once again, it comes back to the same problem. If you don't have the talent to understand these sorts of things, and if you don't have the talent to even set up that roadmap, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do. You will never reach the point, and that's sort of the natural selection argument for you right there, where someone else will come along and outgrow you, out-earn you, or like outdo you, because they have the talent necessary to fix this sort of problem. Because when you have these sorts of continuing systematic issues within the group, it is very most of the time due to the fact that these are people who are able to produce code, but they're not actually able to solve a problem. And there is, I know that sounds a little bit fluffy and philosophical, but there's a big difference between, as I said, someone who has the ability to produce software and someone who can actually look at the problems of the delivery process and like everything that's going on and fix that problem, which is a much bigger and more important problem than finding a person like that, and having such a person in the company is a lot more important than just having yet another person who can take on a ticket and just write some code. Have a great day.